The blood from her split lip tasted like copper and shame. As Aiyana Tso stood before the council of elders, knowing they would cast her out just like the other tribe had done 3 weeks before, she kept her chin high despite the throbbing pain in her ribs where her cousin had kicked her that morning, despite the whispers that had followed her since childhood. Her mother had been Apache, her father a Navajo trader, and that made her something neither tribe could fully accept. When her mother died bringing her into this world 18 years ago, the Apache had raised her out of duty, not love. They fed her the scraps, gave her the hardest work, and reminded her daily that her mixed blood made her less than them. She thought maybe her father's people would be different, but when she finally found them last month, they turned her away before she could even speak her father's name. He had died 2 winters past, they said, and they had no obligation to a half-breed girl with Apache ways. "You bring darkness to our people," the eldest said now, his weathered face twisted with disgust. "Bad things happen when you are near. The sickness that took 3 children last month, the drought that kills our crops, the raids that grow bolder. You are cursed, Aiyana Tso. You must leave and never return." She wanted to scream that she had nothing to do with any of those things, that she had nursed those sick children until her own hands bled, that she had prayed and worked as hard as anyone. But she knew words would not change hearts that had been hardened against her since birth. So she simply nodded once, gathered the few possessions they allowed her to keep, and walked out of the village as the sun began to set on that September evening in 1878. The New Mexico territory stretched vast and unforgiving before her. She had a blanket, a water skin half full, a knife her mother had supposedly owned and nothing else. No horse, no gun, no food. The nearest town was Cimarron, about 15 miles northeast, but she had heard the stories about how white people treated Indians who wandered into their settlements. Still, she had nowhere else to go. The wilderness would kill her within days, and both tribes had made clear she was not welcome to return. She walked through the night, her moccasins wearing thin on the rocky ground. The September air turned cold once the sun disappeared, and she wrapped her blanket tight around her shoulders. Every sound made her jump. Mountain lions hunted these parts, and worse, there were men who would do terrible things to a young woman alone. She kept moving, putting one foot in front of the other, because stopping meant thinking, and thinking meant feeling the crushing weight of her complete isolation. Dawn broke pink and gold across the mountains when she finally saw the first buildings of Cimarron. Her feet were bleeding, her legs shaking with exhaustion. She had not eaten in 2 days, and the water skin was empty. The town was just waking up, smoke rising from chimneys, the smell of coffee and bacon making her stomach clench with hunger. She stayed on the outskirts, unsure where to go or what to do. A group of children spotted her and ran away screaming. A woman gathering eggs from her chicken coop saw her and quickly went inside, slamming the door. Aiyana felt the familiar shame burning in her chest. Here, too, she was unwanted. "You lost, girl," a rough voice called out. She turned to see a man approaching, his hand resting on the gun at his hip. He was older, maybe 50, with a thick beard and mean eyes. "We don't take kindly to Indians begging in our streets." "I am not begging," she said quietly, proud despite everything. "I am just passing through." "Well, pass through faster," he said, stepping closer, "before I decide you're trespassing on private property." She turned to go, but her legs finally gave out. The world tilted sideways, and she fell hard onto the dusty street. The last thing she heard before darkness took her was the man laughing and saying something about lazy savages. She woke to the sensation of something cool on her forehead and the smell of clean linens. Her eyes fluttered open to see rough wooden beams above her and sunlight streaming through a small window. She was lying in a real bed, softer than anything she had ever felt, covered with a thick quilt. For a moment, she thought she had died and this was some kind of afterlife. "Easy now," a male voice said. "You have been out for near about 6 hours." She turned her head sharply, ignoring the spike of pain, and saw a man sitting in a chair beside the bed. He was young, maybe 25, with sandy brown hair that fell to his collar and blue eyes that held concern rather than contempt. He wore typical cowboy clothes, dusty denim and a worn shirt, a hat resting on his knee. His face was tanned from sun and wind, handsome in a rugged way with a strong jaw and a small scar above his left eyebrow. "Where am I?" she asked, her voice hoarse. "My place," he said. "Small ranch about a mile outside town. Name is Lucas Quinn. I was bringing supplies back from Cimarron when I saw you collapse. That bastard Morton was about to kick you while you were down, so I figured I better intervene." He offered her a cup of water. "You looked like you needed help more than he needed target practice." She took the water gratefully, drinking too fast until she coughed. He waited patiently until she caught her breath. "Thank you," she managed, "but I should go. I do not want to bring you trouble." "Trouble from who?" Lucas asked, leaning back in his chair. "And where exactly would you go?" "You collapsed from exhaustion, dehydration, and starvation by my reckoning. Doc Henderson came by and checked you over. Said you have some cracked ribs too and bruising all over. Someone been beating on you." Aiyana looked away, not wanting to answer. She was not used to kindness and she did not trust it. "Look," Lucas said after a moment of silence. "I am not going to force you to tell me your story, but you are safe here, at least for now. I have some stew on the stove. You should eat something before you try going anywhere." Her stomach betrayed her by growling loudly at the mention of food. Lucas smiled, not unkindly, and stood up. "I will take that as a yes. Think you can walk to the kitchen, or should I bring it here?" "I can walk," she said, pride making her push herself up despite the protest of every muscle. She was dizzy and weak, but she managed to stand with his arm supporting her. He led her through the small house, which was simple but clean, just a bedroom, a main room with a kitchen area, and what looked like a washroom. It was more space than she had ever had to herself in her entire life. He settled her at a wooden table and ladled thick beef stew into a bowl, adding a chunk of bread beside it. She tried to eat slowly, to show some dignity, but she was so hungry that she could not help shoveling it in. Lucas did not comment, just quietly refilled her bowl when she finished and poured her more water. "My name is Aiyana Tso," she said finally, after the third bowl had settled in her stomach and she felt almost human again. "I am Apache and Navajo. Both tribes have rejected me. I was trying to reach Cimarron to maybe find work, but I guess that was stupid." "Why did they reject you?" Lucas asked, sitting across from her with his own bowl of stew. "Because of what I am," she said simply. "Neither one thing nor the other. My mother was Apache, my father Navajo. She died giving birth to me. The Apache raised me but always treated me like I was cursed. I thought maybe the Navajo would accept me, but they said I was too Apache, that my father was dead and they owed me nothing. So now I have nowhere." Lucas was quiet for a moment, studying her face with those steady blue eyes. "That must be the loneliest feeling in the world," he said finally, "not belonging anywhere." She felt tears threatening but blinked them back. She had cried enough in her life. "What do you care? You do not even know me." "Maybe not," he agreed. "But I know what it feels like to be cast out by the people who should have loved you. My own pa kicked me off our family ranch in Texas 3 years back because I would not go along with his plan to steal land from the smaller homesteaders. Said I was weak and stupid. My brothers agreed with him, So I came out here, started over with nothing but my horse and my pride." He paused, then added, "I guess what I am trying to say is, I see you, Aiyana, and I do not think you are cursed. I think you just had rotten luck with the folks who raised you." Something in his voice, in the way he looked at her like she was a real person and not some problem to be solved or avoided, made her throat tight with emotion. She had never had anyone speak to her like this, with simple respect and understanding. "Why did you help me?" she asked. "Most white people would have left me in the street." "Most people are cowards," Lucas said bluntly. "They are scared of anything different, so they lash out or ignore it. But I was raised to believe every person deserves basic human decency, even if my pa forgot that lesson somewhere along the way. You were in trouble, I could help. It was that simple." "Nothing is ever that simple," Aiyana said, but she felt a small warmth spreading in her chest, something she had not felt in so long she almost did not recognize it. "Hope." "Maybe not," Lucas conceded, "but sometimes it is worth trying anyway." He stood and started clearing the dishes. "You are welcome to stay here while you recover. I have got the bedroom, but the couch is comfortable enough. I work the ranch most days, but I am around in the evenings. Once you are healed up, we can figure out what comes next." "I cannot pay you," Aiyana said. "I have nothing." "Did I ask for payment?" Lucas raised an eyebrow. "Besides, I could use help around here if you are willing. The place is a mess and I am a terrible cook. If you want to earn your keep, there are plenty of chores." "But you are not my prisoner or my servant. You can leave whenever you want." Aiyana did not know what to say. Generosity without strings attached was foreign to her. She waited for the catch, for the moment when he would reveal what he really wanted. But he just continued cleaning up, humming quietly to himself, acting like it was the most natural thing in the world to take in a strange Indian girl who had collapsed in town. "Okay," she said finally. "I will stay for a few days, until I am stronger. Then I will move on." "Fair enough," Lucas said, though something in his expression suggested he did not quite believe she would leave so soon. "There are clean clothes in the chest by the washroom. They might be big on you, but better than what you are wearing. And there is a tub if you want to clean up. I will be outside tending the horses if you need anything." He left her alone then, giving her space and privacy. Aiyana sat at the table for a long time, trying to process everything that had happened in the last day. She had gone from complete despair to this strange, unexpected kindness. Part of her wanted to run before something went wrong, before Lucas changed his mind or revealed himself to be cruel. But another part, the part that was so tired of running and fighting and surviving alone, wanted to stay in this warm house with this strange cowboy who looked at her like she mattered. Finally, she got up and found the washroom. There was indeed a large metal tub, and she figured out how to work the pump to fill it with water. She heated some on the stove, something else she had never had the luxury to do, and poured it in until the temperature was perfect. She stripped off her dirty, torn clothes and sank into the water with a sigh that came from her soul. She scrubbed away days of dust and blood and sweat, washing her long black hair until it squeaked clean. The water turned brown, then gray. She found soap that smelled like pine and used it liberally. When she finally emerged, she felt like a different person. The clothes Lucas mentioned were indeed too big. A simple shirt and pants meant for a man, but they were clean and soft, and she rolled up the sleeves and cuffs to make them work. She caught sight of herself in a small mirror hanging on the wall and barely recognized the face looking back. Without the dirt and exhaustion, she could see her mother's high cheekbones and her father's straight nose. Her eyes were dark brown, almost black, and her skin was the color of bronze in sunlight. She was not beautiful like some of the girls in the tribes, but she was not ugly either. She was just herself, and maybe that was enough. She found Lucas in the small stable behind the house, brushing down a large chestnut mare. He looked up when she entered and smiled. "Feel better?" he asked. "Yes, thank you." She moved closer, drawn to the horse. She had always loved animals, had often found them easier to understand than people. The mare nickered softly and pushed her nose against Aiyana's hand. "She is beautiful." "That is Rosie," Lucas said. "Best horse I have ever had. Got her as a filly 4 years back. She is gentle but fast when she needs to be." He gestured to 2 other horses in the stalls. "That is Thunder and Lightning, brothers. They pull the wagon when I need to haul supplies." "You talk about them like they are family," Aiyana observed. "They are," Lucas said simply. "Out here, your horse can mean the difference between life and death. I trust these 3 more than I trust most people." He finished brushing Rosie and hung up the tool. "You know how to ride?" "Yes, the Apache taught me. They needed someone to handle the wildest horses, so that job fell to me." She said it matter-of-factly, but Lucas frowned. "Because you were expendable to them," he said, anger flashing in his eyes. "That is messed up, Aiyana," she shrugged. "It was better than some jobs they could have given me. At least the horses never treated me badly because of my blood." Lucas looked like he wanted to say more but held back. Instead, he said, "Well, if you are good with horses, that actually helps me out. I have been thinking about expanding my herd, maybe breaking some wild Mustangs to sell. Could use someone with your skills." "You would trust me with that?" Aiyana asked, surprised. "Why would I not?" Lucas countered. "You just told me you have experience, unless you were lying, which I do not figure you for a liar." "I am not," she said, "but most people would not trust an Indian with valuable animals." "Good thing I am not most people," Lucas said, and there was that smile again, warm and genuine. "Come on, let me show you the rest of the property." They spent the next hour walking the ranch. It was not large by Texas standards, Lucas explained, only about 300 acres, but it was enough for him. He had cattle, about 50 head, and was building up slowly. There was a vegetable garden that needed work, a chicken coop, and a small orchard of apple trees. He pointed out where his property ended and his neighbor's began. "That is the Morrison spread," he said, gesturing north. "They have been decent enough, keep to themselves mostly. South is the Carlson place. They are less friendly, but they have not caused trouble yet. East is open range land, and west is the road into town." "Do you go into Cimarron often?" Aiyana asked. "Once a week or so for supplies and to sell eggs or whatever produce I have." "Why? People there did not seem to like Indians," she said carefully. "I do not want to cause problems for you." Lucas stopped walking and turned to face her fully. "Aiyana, I am going to be straight with you. Yeah, there are plenty of folks in town who would have a problem with you being here. There are also folks who would have a problem with me for helping you. But this is my land, my ranch, and I will help who I damn well please. Anyone who has an issue with that can take it up with me directly." The fierce protectiveness in his voice startled her. "Why do you care so much? You only just met me." "Because it is the right thing to do," Lucas said. "And because I am tired of watching good people suffer because of other people's ignorance and hate. My ma used to say that the measure of a person is not where they come from, but what they do with what they have been given. You have been given a raw deal, Aiyana. You deserve a chance to build something better." She felt those tears threatening again and turned away so he would not see. No one had ever fought for her like this, had ever suggested she deserved good things. It was overwhelming and terrifying and wonderful all at once. "I do not know what to say," she admitted. "Then do not say anything," Lucas replied gently. "Just stick around for a while, help me with the ranch, get your strength back. The rest will figure itself out." They walked back to the house in comfortable silence. The sun was starting to set, painting the sky in shades of orange and purple. Aiyana felt something settling in her chest, something that felt dangerously close to peace. Over the next few weeks, she fell into a routine at the ranch. She woke at dawn, helped Lucas with the morning chores, then spent the day working on various projects. Her ribs healed slowly and the bruises faded. She gained weight from regular meals and her strength returned. Lucas was easy to be around. He did not push her to talk about her past, did not expect anything from her except honest work. They developed an easy rhythm, moving around each other like they had been doing this for years instead of weeks. She discovered she loved the work. Caring for the animals, tending the garden, fixing things around the property. It was hard physical labor, but it was hers in a way nothing had ever been before. Lucas praised her efforts, thanked her for her help, treated her like an equal partner rather than a burden or a servant. In the evenings, they would sit on the porch and watch the stars come out. Sometimes they talked, sometimes they sat in silence. Lucas told her stories about growing up in Texas, about his mother who died when he was 15, about his brothers and his father's ranch. She told him about life in the Apache village, about the small kindnesses and the larger cruelties, about her mother who she never knew and her father who died before she could meet him. "You ever get lonely out here?" she asked one night, about a month after she arrived. "Sometimes," Lucas admitted. "It is quiet, but I like the peace. After all the fighting with my family, I needed space to figure out who I was without them breathing down my neck." He glanced at her. "Less lonely now, though. It is nice having someone to talk to at the end of the day." "I like it too," Aiyana said softly. "I have never had a friend before, not really." Lucas smiled at that. "Well, now you do, and friends look out for each other." Their friendship deepened as autumn progressed. Lucas taught her to shoot, saying every person should know how to protect themselves. They practiced behind the house, and she proved to be a natural shot. He also taught her to read and write, something neither tribe had bothered with. They spent evenings at the kitchen table, her carefully forming letters while he corrected her gently. In return, she taught him things she had learned from the Apache. How to track animals, how to read weather signs, how to find water in dry land. She showed him which plants were good for medicine and which were poisonous. He was an eager student, respectful of her knowledge. "You know so much," he said one day after she identified a plant that could help with infection. "The Apache might not have valued you, but they sure taught you useful skills." "They taught me because they needed me to know," she said. "Not because they cared about me. There is a difference." "I care about you," Lucas said, and the way he said it made her heart skip. "Just so you know." She looked at him, really looked at him, and saw something in his eyes that made her breath catch. It was not just friendship or kindness. It was something deeper, warmer, more dangerous. And the terrifying thing was, she felt it too. Somewhere between the morning chores and the evening conversations, between the shooting lessons and the reading practice, she had started to care about Lucas Quinn in a way that went beyond gratitude or friendship. "Lucas," she started, but he held up a hand. "You do not have to say anything," he said quickly. "I just wanted you to know, no pressure, no expectations, just the truth." But the truth was out there now, hanging between them like a living thing. That night, lying on the couch that had become her bed, Aiyana stared at the ceiling and tried to sort through her feelings. She was 18, and she had never been in love. She had never even considered it possible that someone could love her. The tribes had made it clear she was defective, wrong, cursed. But Lucas looked at her like she hung the moon, like she was precious and important and wanted. It scared her to death. The next morning she tried to act normal, but there was a new awareness between them. Every accidental touch felt electric. Every shared glance held meaning. She caught herself watching him while he worked, admiring the way his muscles moved under his shirt, the way he smiled at the horses, the gentle strength in his hands. "You are staring," he said one afternoon, looking up from mending a fence post. She flushed and looked away. "Sorry. I do not mind," he said, and there was that warmth in his voice again. "I look at you too, you know, when you are not paying attention." "Lucas," she said, and this time she did not look away. "I do not know how to do this. I have never. Nobody has ever." "Hey," he said, crossing to her and taking her hands in his. "We do not have to figure it all out right now. We have time. I am not going anywhere, and as far as I am concerned, you are not either, unless you want to." "I do not want to," she admitted. "I want to stay with you, but I am scared." "Of what?" His thumbs rubbed gentle circles on the backs of her hands. "Of caring too much. Of losing this. Of you realizing I am not worth all this trouble." The words tumbled out, all her deepest fears laid bare. "Aiyana," Lucas said firmly, "listen to me. You are worth everything. Every bit of trouble, every moment, every risk. I have been alone out here for 3 years, and in 1 month you have made this place feel like a home. You make me laugh. You make me think. You make me want to be better. That is not nothing. That is everything." She felt tears spilling down her cheeks, but they were good tears this time. "I think I am falling in love with you," she whispered. "And it terrifies me." "I am already in love with you," Lucas said, and then he was kissing her, soft and sweet and perfect. His lips were warm, his hands gentle as they cupped her face. She kissed him back, pouring all her fear and hope and longing into it. When they finally pulled apart, both breathing hard, he rested his forehead against hers. "You belong with me always," he said, "if you will have me. I know we have not known each other long, but I have never been more sure of anything." "Yes," she said, because what else could she say? This man had saved her life, had given her a home, had shown her what it meant to be valued and loved. "Yes, I will have you. Always." They stood there holding each other as the sun set. Two people who had been cast out by their families finding belonging in each other. The next few months passed in a blur of happiness Aiyana had never imagined possible. She and Lucas worked the ranch together during the day and fell asleep in each other's arms at night. He moved her into his bedroom, and they learned each other's bodies with tenderness and passion. She had been nervous that first time, inexperienced and unsure, but Lucas was patient and gentle, making sure she felt safe and loved. They talked about getting married, but Lucas wanted to do it right. "I want to take you into town, buy you a proper dress, have a real ceremony," he said. "Show everyone that you are mine and I am yours. Let them see how proud I am to call you my wife. People will talk," Aiyana warned. "They will say terrible things about you for marrying an Indian." "Let them talk," Lucas said firmly. "Their opinions do not pay my bills or warm my bed. You do. That is all that matters." They went into Cimarron together one Saturday in late November. Aiyana wore one of Lucas's shirts tucked into pants she had modified to fit her better. She held her head high as they walked down the main street, even though she felt the stares and heard the whispers. Lucas kept his hand on the small of her back, a possessive and protective gesture. They went to the general store, and the owner, a thin man named Mr. Peterson, looked like he wanted to refuse them service. But Lucas had been a good customer for 3 years, paying cash and never causing trouble, so Peterson swallowed his objections and took their money. They bought fabric for a dress, simple white cotton that would be suitable for a wedding. They also picked up supplies for the ranch, flour and sugar and coffee. As they were leaving, they ran into the man who had been harassing Aiyana the day she collapsed. Morton. He looked at her with undisguised hatred. "I see you picked up a stray," he said to Lucas. "You know these Indians carry disease, right? Probably fleas too." Lucas's jaw tightened, but he kept his voice even. Watch your mouth, Morton. That is my future wife you are insulting. Morton laughed, a nasty sound. Your wife. You are going to marry that half-breed. Jesus, Quinn. I knew you were stupid for leaving Texas, but this is a new low. One more word, Lucas said, his voice dropping to something dangerous, and you are going to be eating your next meal through a straw. Several people had stopped to watch the confrontation. Aiyana wanted to pull Lucas away to avoid the scene, but she also felt a fierce pride that he was defending her so publicly. Morton seemed to realize he was about to get his face rearranged and backed down. Whatever, man. Your funeral. He stalked off, muttering under his breath. Lucas took a deep breath, then turned to Aiyana. You okay? I should be asking you that, she said. You almost hit him. Would have been worth it, Lucas muttered. Then louder so the gathered crowd could hear. This is Aiyana Tso. She's going to be my wife before Christmas. Anyone who has a problem with that can take it up with me. Otherwise, I expect her to be treated with the same respect you would show any other woman in this town. There was a long silence. Then, surprisingly, the Reverend's wife stepped forward. Mrs. Carmichael was a middle-aged woman with kind eyes and a reputation for fairness. Congratulations, she said warmly, extending her hand to Aiyana. It is nice to meet you, dear. Welcome to Cimarron. You will have to excuse some of our residents. They forget their manners sometimes. Aiyana shook her hand, stunned. Thank you. If you need help with wedding preparations, you come find me, Mrs. Carmichael continued. Every bride deserves a proper celebration. She looked at Lucas. Your young lady is lucky to have found someone who loves her so obviously. I am the lucky one, Lucas said, pulling Aiyana close. Trust me on that. Mrs. Carmichael smiled and walked away. A few other people offered tentative congratulations before the crowd dispersed. It was not universal acceptance, but it was something. A start. On the ride back to the ranch, Aiyana was quiet, processing everything that had happened. You did not have to do that, she said finally. Claim me publicly like that, now everyone knows. Good, Lucas said. I want everyone to know. I want there to be no doubt that you are under my protection, that you belong here as much as anyone. He glanced at her. Unless you did not want me to say those things. No, I wanted you to, she admitted. It felt good, scary but good, like maybe I really can have this life. You can, Lucas assured her. We will build it together. They were married 2 weeks later on a cold December morning. Mrs. Carmichael helped Aiyana make her dress, teaching her to use the sewing machine in the church basement. The dress was simple but pretty, with long sleeves and a high neck suitable for winter weather. Mrs. Carmichael also gave her a warm shawl as a wedding gift. The ceremony was small, held in the church with just a handful of people attending. The Morrisons came, Lucas's neighbors, and they were polite if not warm. Mrs. Carmichael and the Reverend, of course. A few other townspeople who were curious or genuinely supportive. Morton and his ilk stayed away, which was fine by everyone. Aiyana stood at the altar next to Lucas, her hand trembling in his, and listened as Reverend Carmichael talked about love and commitment and partnership. When it came time for vows, Lucas turned to her with so much love in his eyes that she thought she might burst. Aiyana, I vow to love you, protect you, and stand by you every day of my life. You are my home, my heart, my everything. Where you go, I go. Your people are my people. Your joys are my joys, your sorrows mine to share. I am yours completely and forever. She had to blink back tears as she said her own vows. Lucas, you saved my life in every way a person can be saved. You gave me a home when I had none, hope when I had lost it all, and love when I thought I was unlovable. I vow to love you, support you, and build a life with you. You are my family now, my heart, my always. I am yours forever. They exchanged simple gold bands that Lucas had bought in town, and when the reverend pronounced them husband and wife, Lucas kissed her deeply, not caring who was watching. There was applause, and Mrs. Carmichael dabbed at her eyes with a handkerchief. They had a small reception in the church hall, with cake that Mrs. Carmichael had baked and coffee and punch. People congratulated them, and Aiyana felt like she was living in a dream. Mrs. Morrison, a practical woman with a weathered face, actually smiled at her. "You take care of that young man," she said. "He is a good one, hard to find these days." "I will," Aiyana promised. "I know how lucky I am." "He is lucky too," Mrs. Morrison said surprisingly. "I have watched your place from afar. You work hard. That ranch looks better than it has in years. A man needs a good woman beside him, and it looks like Lucas found one." It was not quite acceptance, but it was acknowledgement. Aiyana would take it. They rode home that afternoon as the sun started to set, officially married, officially a family of two. Lucas had tied ribbons to the wagon in celebration, and they fluttered in the cold wind. When they got home, he scooped her up and carried her over the threshold, making her laugh. "Welcome home, Mrs. Quinn," he said, setting her down gently. "Mrs. Quinn," she repeated, testing the name. "Aiyana Quinn. It sounds strange, good but strange." "You will get used to it," Lucas promised. He started a fire in the hearth to chase away the cold, then turned to her with that look in his eyes that made her insides warm. "So, wife, how should we celebrate our wedding night?" she smiled, suddenly shy despite everything they had already shared. "I think you know." He crossed to her slowly, giving her time to change her mind, but she did not want to. She wanted this, wanted him, wanted the life they were building together. When he kissed her, it felt different somehow, weighted with the vows they had just spoken. They were bound now, in the eyes of God and the law and their own hearts. They made love slowly, tenderly, whispering promises against each other's skin. Afterward, lying tangled together in their bed, Aiyana felt a completeness she had never known. This was belonging. This was home. "I love you," she whispered into the darkness. "I love you too," Lucas replied, pulling her closer. "My wife, my Aiyana, mine always." "Yours always," she agreed and fell asleep smiling. Winter settled over New Mexico with cold winds and occasional snow. Aiyana and Lucas spent the long evenings by the fire, planning for spring. They wanted to expand the cattle herd, plant more crops, maybe build an addition onto the house for a future family. "How many children do you want?" Lucas asked one night as they lay in bed. "I do not know," Aiyana admitted. "I never let myself think about having children. I did not think anyone would want to have them with me." "Well, I want to," Lucas said. "If you do, I think you would be an amazing mother, patient and strong and loving." "You would be a good father," she said, imagining it. "You are kind and gentle but firm when you need to be." "So is that a yes?" Lucas grinned. "We are going to try for babies." "Yes," she said, laughing. "We can try." They did try, enthusiastically and often. But winter turned to spring, and spring to summer, and Aiyana's monthly courses continued to arrive like clockwork. She tried not to be disappointed, tried to tell herself they had time, but she saw the worry growing in Lucas's eyes too. "Maybe I am broken," she said one night after another month had passed without pregnancy. "Maybe the universe is saying I should not pass on my mixed blood." "Stop," Lucas said firmly, taking her face in his hands. "You are not broken, and there is nothing wrong with your blood. Sometimes these things take time. We just have to be patient." But patience was hard when it felt like another rejection, another way she was not enough. She threw herself into ranch work, trying not to obsess over it. They were doing well financially. The cattle herd had grown to 75 head, and they had successfully broken and sold several wild horses. The garden produced more vegetables than they could eat, and they sold the excess in town. They were building something real, something lasting. In August, Mrs. Carmichael invited them to a town social. Aiyana did not want to go, still uncomfortable with large groups of white people, but Lucas convinced her it would be good to show their faces, to remind everyone that they were a normal married couple contributing to the community. The social was held in the church hall, with tables of food and a small band playing fiddle music. Aiyana wore one of the dresses Mrs. Carmichael had helped her make, a pretty blue cotton with white trim. Lucas wore his good shirt and looked so handsome she could hardly stand it. They were met with a mixture of reactions. Some people nodded politely. Some ignored them completely. A few, like Mrs. Carmichael and the Morrisons, made a point of welcoming them warmly. Morton and his friends glared from across the room but kept their distance. Lucas led her in a simple dance, and she stumbled through it, laughing at her own clumsiness. "I do not know how to do this," she protested. "Neither do I really," Lucas admitted. "We are figuring it out together, like everything else." Watching them dance, smiling at each other like no one else existed, Mrs. Carmichael turned to her husband and said, "That is what real love looks like. Those two young people understand something most folks never learn." As the evening wore on, Aiyana started to relax. This was not so bad. She could do this, could exist in Lucas's world as long as he was beside her. They ate cake and drank punch and talked with neighbors about cattle prices and weather patterns and all the mundane things that made up life. Then a young woman approached them, someone Aiyana had not seen before. She was pretty, with blonde hair and green eyes, wearing a fancy dress that must have cost a fortune. "Lucas Quinn," the woman said, her voice light but with an edge to it. "I heard you were in the area. I wanted to see if the rumors were true." Lucas's body went tense beside Aiyana. "Hello, Rebecca. Surprised to see you here." "My father bought the old Henderson Ranch last month," Rebecca explained. "We are moving the operation here from Santa Fe. Imagine my surprise when I heard you had married." Her eyes flicked to Aiyana with barely concealed disdain. "An Indian. How progressive of you." "This is my wife, Aiyana," Lucas said coldly. "And I would appreciate it if you spoke to her with respect." "Of course," Rebecca said, though her smile was anything but respectful. "It is just such a surprise. You and I were supposed to be married, remember? Before you ran off to play cowboy." Aiyana felt like she had been punched. Lucas had never mentioned being engaged before. "That was never going to happen, Rebecca, and you know it," Lucas said. "Your father wanted to merge our family ranches. I wanted nothing to do with that arrangement or with you. That is why I left Texas. And look how well that worked out," Rebecca said sweetly. "You are scratching out a living on a tiny ranch in the middle of nowhere, married to a squaw, while I am living in a mansion with my father planning to run for territorial governor. But sure, you made the right choice." "I did," Lucas said firmly, putting his arm around Aiyana. "The best choice of my life. Now if you will excuse us, we were just leaving." He steered Aiyana toward the door, ignoring Rebecca's fake laughter behind them. They walked to the wagon in silence, and Aiyana could feel the tension radiating off him. "You were engaged?" she asked once they were on the road home. "Not really," Lucas said. "It was something our fathers arranged when we were teenagers. I never agreed to it. Rebecca knew I did not love her, but she liked the idea of combining the ranches, of being rich and powerful. When I refused to go along with my father's land-grabbing schemes, she showed her true colors. Called me weak and stupid just like my pa did. I realized she never cared about me, just what I represented, so I left." "You never told me," Aiyana said quietly. "Because it did not matter," Lucas said, pulling the wagon to a stop and turning to face her. "Aiyana, I do not care about Rebecca or her father's money or any of that. I left that life because it was toxic and fake. What we have is real. You are real. Please tell me you know that." "I know," she said, but doubt had wormed its way into her heart. "It is just hard sometimes. She is beautiful and rich and white. I am none of those things." "You are beautiful," Lucas said fiercely. "Inside and out. You are strong and smart and kind. You work harder than anyone I have ever met. You make me laugh every single day, that woman in there." He jerked his thumb back toward town. "She is ugly on the inside where it counts. I do not care how pretty her face is or how much money her daddy has. I chose you, Aiyana. I will always choose you." She wanted to believe him. Looking into his eyes, seeing the truth there, she mostly did. But a small part of her, the part that had been rejected so many times before, whispered that maybe Rebecca was right. Maybe Lucas would eventually realize he had made a mistake. As if reading her mind, Lucas leaned forward and kissed her deeply. "Stop thinking so much," he murmured against her lips. "Just feel. Feel how much I love you." She did feel it, in the way his hands held her face like she was precious, in the way his lips moved against hers with desperate tenderness. By the time they got home, her doubts had faded, pushed back by the evidence of his love. That night, they made love with an urgency that had not been there before, as if they were both trying to prove something. Afterward, Lucas held her close and whispered, "You belong with me always. No one else." "Just you." "Just me," she echoed, and finally let herself fully believe it. September came, marking a full year since Aiyana had collapsed in Cimarron's dusty street. They had a small celebration, just the two of them, acknowledging how far they had come. The ranch was thriving. Their marriage was strong. Life was good. Then, in early October, Aiyana woke up feeling nauseous. She barely made it outside before she was sick. Lucas hovered worriedly, asking if she had eaten something bad. "I do not think so," she said, but even as she spoke, hope fluttered in her chest. She had been tired lately, and her courses were late. Not just a few days, but 2 weeks. She did not say anything to Lucas, not wanting to get his hopes up. But when another week passed and she was still nauseous in the morning, still exhausted by midday, she let herself believe. They rode into town, ostensibly for supplies, but Aiyana asked Mrs. Carmichael if she could speak with her privately. The older woman took one look at Aiyana's face and smiled. "You think you might be expecting, maybe," Aiyana said. "I have the signs, but I am afraid to be wrong." "Come with me," Mrs. Carmichael said, leading her to a back room. She asked Aiyana a series of questions about her symptoms, did a gentle examination, and then confirmed what Aiyana had barely dared to hope. "You are pregnant, dear. Maybe 2 months along by my reckoning. Congratulations." Aiyana felt tears of joy streaming down her face. "Really? You are sure?" "As sure as I can be without a doctor's examination, but I have delivered enough babies to know the signs. You are going to be a mother, Aiyana." "I am going to be a mother," Aiyana repeated, and suddenly she was laughing and crying at the same time. "Oh my God, Lucas is going to be so happy." "You have not told him yet?" Mrs. Carmichael asked. "I wanted to be sure first," Aiyana explained. "He has been so patient, never complaining, but I know he wants children. I did not want to disappoint him." "Well, you certainly will not be disappointing him with this news," Mrs. Carmichael said warmly. "Now, let's talk about what you need to do to take care of yourself and that baby." She spent the next hour learning about pregnancy from Mrs. Carmichael, who had raised 5 children of her own. By the time Aiyana rejoined Lucas at the wagon, she was buzzing with excitement and nerves. "You look happy," Lucas observed as they headed home. "Did Mrs. Carmichael give you some good gossip?" "Something like that," Aiyana said, unable to keep the smile off her face. "Are you going to tell me, or do I have to guess?" Lucas asked, grinning. She waited until they were home, until they were sitting at the kitchen table with coffee and the late afternoon sun streaming through the windows. Then she took his hand and said, "Lucas, we are going to have a baby." For a moment, he just stared at her. Then his face broke into the biggest smile she had ever seen. "Really, you are pregnant. We are having a baby." "Yes," she confirmed, laughing as he jumped up and pulled her into his arms, spinning her around. "We are having a baby," he shouted to the empty house. "Aiyana, this is amazing. When? How far along are you? Are you feeling okay? You need to sit down." "I am fine," she assured him, though she let him guide her back to the chair. "Mrs. Carmichael thinks about 2 months, which means the baby should come in May, late spring." "A spring baby," Lucas said, kneeling beside her chair and putting his hand on her still flat stomach. "Our baby. Aiyana, I am so happy I could burst. You have given me everything I never knew I wanted. A home, a family, a reason to wake up every morning with joy instead of dread." "You gave me those things first," she reminded him. "You saved me, Lucas, in every way possible." "We saved each other," he said, and kissed her with such tenderness that she felt tears welling up again. The next several months were a blur of preparations and changes. Lucas became even more protective than before, insisting Aiyana avoid the heaviest chores, hovering whenever she did anything remotely strenuous. She found it both annoying and endearing. "I am pregnant, not broken," she complained one day when he tried to stop her from lifting a basket of laundry. "I know," Lucas said, "but you are carrying precious cargo. Let me help." She could not really argue with that logic. As fall turned to winter and her belly began to swell, she found herself grateful for his help. Mrs. Carmichael visited often, checking on her progress and bringing baby clothes she had knitted. Even Mrs. Morrison stopped by once with a hand-carved cradle her husband had made. "Every baby needs a proper cradle," she said gruffly, obviously embarrassed by her own kindness. "Thank you," Aiyana said, genuinely touched. "This is beautiful." "Well, you and Lucas are good neighbors," Mrs. Morrison said, "and we take care of our own around here." It was the closest thing to full acceptance Aiyana had received from the town, and it meant more than she could express. Winter was hard, with heavy snows and bitter cold, but Aiyana felt safe and warm in their little house. Lucas kept the fire going constantly, made sure she had plenty to eat, read to her in the evenings. He talked to her belly, telling the baby stories about the ranch and promising to teach them to ride and rope and shoot. "What if it is a girl?" Aiyana asked one night. "Will you teach her all those things too?" "Of course," Lucas said. "Why would I not? I want our children to be strong and capable, regardless of whether they are boys or girls. You can do everything I can do. Why should our daughter be any different?" "Not every man thinks that way," Aiyana observed. "Well, I am not every man," Lucas said, which made her smile because it was so very true. Spring came slowly, with the snow melting to reveal green shoots and the promise of new life. Aiyana's belly was huge now, and she moved like a ship in full sail. She was uncomfortable and tired and so ready to not be pregnant anymore. "Soon," Mrs. Carmichael assured her during a visit in early May. "That baby is sitting low. Could be any day now." 2 days later, Aiyana woke in the night to a sharp pain in her lower back. She lay still, wondering if it was just the baby moving, but then another pain came, stronger this time, wrapping around her middle. "Lucas," she said, shaking his shoulder, "I think it is time." He was instantly awake, already moving. "Are you sure? What do you need? Should I get Mrs. Carmichael?" "Yes, get Mrs. Carmichael," Aiyana said through another contraction. "And stay calm. Babies take time." Lucas rode into town faster than he had ever ridden before, pounding on the Carmichael's door until the Reverend answered, bleary-eyed and confused. "The baby is coming," Lucas blurted out. "Please, we need help." Mrs. Carmichael was there within the hour, calm and efficient. She examined Aiyana and confirmed she was in labor. First babies can take a while, she warned. Could be hours yet. Best settle in and breathe through the contractions. It was indeed hours. Long, painful hours where Aiyana thought she might die from the intensity of it. Lucas held her hand, wiped her forehead, whispered encouragement even when she snapped at him to shut up. Mrs. Carmichael checked her progress, brought her water, helped her change positions. Finally, as the sun was setting, Mrs. Carmichael said, "All right, dear. It is time to push." Aiyana had never experienced pain like this, but she pushed with everything she had, thinking about all the times she had survived when she should not have. If she could survive rejection and starvation and complete loneliness, she could survive this. She could bring her baby into the world. "I can see the head," Mrs. Carmichael said excitedly. "One more big push, Aiyana. You can do this." She bore down with all her strength, and suddenly there was pressure and then relief and then the most beautiful sound she had ever heard. A baby crying. "It is a boy," Mrs. Carmichael announced, holding up a squirming, wailing infant covered in blood and vernix. "A healthy baby boy." She placed the baby on Aiyana's chest, and Aiyana looked down at the tiny perfect person they had created. He had dark hair and dark eyes, and he was absolutely beautiful. "A son," Lucas said, his voice choked with emotion. "We have a son, Aiyana." "We have a son," she agreed, running her finger down the baby's soft cheek. He turned toward her touch, already seeking comfort. "Hello, little one. We have been waiting for you." Mrs. Carmichael helped deliver the afterbirth and got Aiyana cleaned up while Lucas held his son for the first time. He looked terrified and awed in equal measure. "He is so small," Lucas whispered. "What if I break him?" "You will not," Mrs. Carmichael assured him. "Babies are tougher than they look. Now, what are you going to name this little fellow?" Lucas and Aiyana looked at each other. They had discussed names but had not made a final decision. "What do you think?" Lucas asked her. "You did all the hard work. You should choose." "No, we choose together," Aiyana said. "What about Liam? It means strong-willed warrior. He will need strength growing up with us as parents, given how people might treat him." "Liam Quinn," Lucas tested the name. "I like it. Strong and solid. Yes, that is perfect. Welcome to the world, Liam Quinn. Your mama and I are going to do our best by you, son. That is a promise." Mrs. Carmichael stayed the night to make sure everything was all right, then left in the morning with instructions on nursing and newborn care. Lucas sent word to the Morrisons and a few other neighbors announcing the birth, and over the next week, people brought gifts. More baby clothes, blankets, a toy horse carved from wood. Aiyana was exhausted but happier than she had ever been. Liam was a good baby, nursing well and sleeping for a few hours at a stretch. Lucas was a devoted father, changing diapers without complaint, walking the floor when Liam fussed, singing to him in a surprisingly good voice. "You are a natural at this," Aiyana observed one night, watching Lucas rock their son to sleep. "I am terrified every minute that I am doing it wrong," Lucas admitted. "But I love him so much it hurts, and I love you for giving him to us. We made him together," Aiyana reminded him. "He is ours, our family." "Our family," Lucas repeated, and there was such wonder in his voice. The next year passed in a happy blur of sleepless nights and first smiles and tiny milestones. Liam grew quickly, a healthy baby with his mother's dark eyes and his father's smile. The ranch continued to thrive, and they hired a young man from town to help with the heavy labor so Aiyana could focus on the baby. When Liam was 18 months old, Aiyana realized she was pregnant again. This time she told Lucas right away, and he was just as excited as the first time. "2 children," he said, grinning like a fool. We are going to have 2 children. Liam is going to be a big brother. This pregnancy was easier than the first. Aiyana knew what to expect, and her body seemed to remember how to do it. She felt good, energetic even, chasing after a toddler while her belly swelled. In March of 1881, she gave birth again, this time to a daughter. The labor was shorter, and when Mrs. Carmichael placed the baby in her arms, Aiyana fell in love all over again. "She is perfect," Lucas said, tears streaming down his face as he looked at his daughter. "What should we name her?" "I was thinking Anna," Aiyana said. "It means grace, and she is graceful, even brand new." "Anna Quinn," Lucas said. "Hello, little Anna, welcome to the family. Your big brother is going to love you." Liam was indeed fascinated by his baby sister, wanting to touch her gently and bring her toys. He was a sweet, curious child, and Aiyana felt a fierce pride watching him interact with Anna. Their family was complete. 2 healthy children, a thriving ranch, a strong marriage built on mutual respect and deep love. It was more than Aiyana had ever dreamed possible that terrible day when both tribes had rejected her. Sometimes, late at night when the children were asleep and she and Lucas sat on the porch watching the stars, she thought about those days. The loneliness, the despair, the certainty that she would die alone and unloved. "What are you thinking about?" Lucas asked, noticing her distant expression. "How different my life is now," she said. "How lucky I am." "We are both lucky," Lucas corrected. "I found you when I needed you most, even if I did not know it at the time. You gave me purpose and love and a family. You gave me everything." "You said something to me once," Aiyana said. "Right after you kissed me the first time. Do you remember?" "I said a lot of things," Lucas grinned. "I was pretty worked up." "You said you belong with me always," Aiyana reminded him. "And I think about those words all the time because they are true. I do belong with you always. You made a place for me when no one else would. You saw me when I was invisible to everyone else. You loved me when I thought I was unlovable." "Aiyana," Lucas said, pulling her close. "You were never unlovable. Those tribes were fools who could not see your worth. I am just grateful I got to be the one to show you how incredible you are." They sat in comfortable silence for a while, listening to the night sounds of the ranch. Cattle lowing in the distance, coyotes calling to each other, the wind rustling through the grass. "You ever regret leaving Texas?" Aiyana asked. "Giving up your family's ranch and all that money?" "Never," Lucas said firmly. "Not once. That life was not for me. It was built on greed and cruelty. This life, the one we built together, is honest and good and real. These 300 acres mean more to me than all my father's thousands ever did, because I earned this with my own hands with you by my side." "I love you," Aiyana said simply. "I love you too," Lucas replied. "Always." The years continued to pass in contentment. Liam grew into a strong, smart boy who loved the ranch and the animals. Anna was more studious, preferring books to barn work, but she could ride as well as her brother when she wanted to. They were both beautiful children, with features that blended their parents' backgrounds into something striking and unique. They faced challenges, of course. There were people in town who made comments about the mixed-blood children. There were times when Liam came home crying because other kids had called him names. Aiyana and Lucas taught their children to be proud of their heritage, both Apache and white, and to stand up for themselves without becoming cruel in return. "You come from 2 strong peoples," Aiyana told them. "That makes you stronger, not weaker. Never let anyone make you ashamed of who you are. And if anyone gives you real trouble," Lucas added, "you come tell me. Your mama and I will handle it." The Quinn family became a fixture in Cimarron, known for their hard work and integrity. Lucas served on the town council for a few years, pushing for fair treatment of all residents regardless of race or background. Aiyana became known for her healing knowledge, helping deliver babies and treating injuries with her herbs and traditional remedies. Rebecca and her father eventually moved back to Santa Fe after Mr. Henderson's political ambitions failed to materialize. The last time Aiyana saw Rebecca, the blonde woman looked bitter and older than her years. Her husband, a wealthy banker she had married for his money, was rumored to treat her poorly. Aiyana felt pity rather than triumph. Everyone deserved happiness, even people who had been cruel to her. When Liam turned 16 and Anna 14, they sat their children down for a serious talk. "You are both old enough now to start thinking about your futures," Lucas said. "This ranch will be yours someday, to keep or sell as you see fit, but we want you to know that whatever you choose to do with your lives, we support you." "I want to stay," Liam said immediately. "I love the ranch. I cannot imagine doing anything else." Anna was quieter. "I want to be a teacher," she admitted. "I want to help children learn to read and write like Papa taught Mama." "Is that okay?" "More than okay," Aiyana said, hugging her daughter. "That is wonderful, Anna. You will be an amazing teacher." "But what about the ranch?" Anna asked, worried. "I do not want to let you down." "You could never let us down," Lucas assured her. "Following your heart is the bravest thing you can do. Your mama taught me that." They sent Anna to school in Santa Fe when she turned 18, and it was hard letting her go. But she wrote letters every week, full of excitement about her studies and her future. Liam stayed on the ranch, working side by side with Lucas, learning everything about running the operation. At 23, Liam met a girl named Sarah, the daughter of the town doctor. She was smart and kind with red hair and freckles, and she looked at Liam like he hung the moon. Aiyana recognized that look because it was how she had looked at Lucas all those years ago. They were married the next year, and Sarah moved to the ranch. She fit in perfectly, learning quickly and bringing joy to their family. When she gave Aiyana and Lucas their first grandchild 2 years later, a baby girl named Rose, Aiyana held her granddaughter and marveled at how far their family had come. Anna became a teacher in Cimarron, returning home after finishing her studies. She met and married the new reverend, a kind young man who admired her intelligence and passion for education. They had 3 children, filling the town with more Quinn grandchildren. The years turned into decades. Aiyana's hair turned gray, and Lucas's face grew lined with age. They slowed down, letting Liam and Sarah take over more of the ranch work. But they were happy, surrounded by children and grandchildren, watching their family flourish. On their 30th wedding anniversary, Lucas took Aiyana back to the spot where they first met, where he had found her collapsed in the street. "I was thinking about that day," he said, "about how different our lives could have been if I had ridden past you. If I had been a coward like so many others." "But you were not," Aiyana said, taking his hand. "You stopped, you helped, you loved me." "Best decision I ever made," Lucas said. "Aiyana Quinn, these 30 years with you have been the greatest adventure of my life. You are still the most beautiful woman I have ever seen, still the strongest person I know. I love you more today than I did when we married, which I did not think was possible." "I love you too," Aiyana said. "You saved my life that day, Lucas, but more than that, you gave me a life worth living. You showed me that I deserved love and family and happiness. Everything good in my life came from you." "From us," Lucas corrected. "We built this together." They stood there for a long time, 2 people who had found each other against all odds, who had created a legacy of love and family that would continue long after they were gone. When Aiyana was 65 and Lucas 72, he passed peacefully in his sleep one winter night. Aiyana woke to find him cold beside her, a small smile on his face like he had died dreaming of something beautiful. She held his hand and cried, mourning the loss of her partner, her love, her everything. But even in her grief, she knew how lucky she had been. 47 years of marriage. 2 children, 7 grandchildren, and 3 great-grandchildren. A life rich with love and purpose and belonging. At Lucas's funeral, the church was packed. Not just family, but neighbors and friends and townspeople who had come to respect the Quinn family over the decades. Liam gave a eulogy talking about his father's integrity and kindness. Anna read a poem about love that endures beyond death. And Aiyana stood at the front of the church and said simply, "He told me once that I belonged with him always. And I did. I do. Even now that he is gone, I belong to him and he to me. That kind of love does not die." She lived another 5 years, watching her great-grandchildren grow, tending her garden, telling stories about the old days to anyone who would listen. She never remarried. How could she when Lucas had been her soulmate? When she died at 70, peacefully in her own bed surrounded by family, they buried her next to Lucas. The headstone read, "Aiyana Quinn, beloved wife, mother, grandmother, she belonged here always." And she did. The girl who had been rejected by both tribes, who had thought herself cursed and unlovable, had built a dynasty of love that would span generations. Her children's children's children would grow up hearing the story of how their great-great-grandfather found their great-great-grandmother collapsed in the street and decided to help her. How he loved her when no one else would. How they built a life together against all odds. The Quinn Ranch remained in the family for over 100 years, a testament to what 2 people could create when they chose love over fear, acceptance over judgment, hope over despair. And somewhere, in whatever comes after this life, Aiyana and Lucas were together again. Walking hand in hand through fields of wildflowers, laughing and talking like they used to on those warm New Mexico evenings. 2 souls who had found each other in the wilderness and decided to build something beautiful. They belonged together always. And in the end, that was the only thing that mattered. Not the rejection or the hardship or the prejudice they had faced. Just the love, just the family, just the life they had created together, one day at a time, one choice at a time, one act of courage and kindness at a time. Their story became legend in Cimarron, told and retold until it took on mythical proportions. But the truth was simpler and more profound than any legend. It was just the story of 2 people who found each other when they needed it most. Who chose to love when hate would have been easier. Who built a home where both had been homeless. It was the story of belonging, of family, of a cowboy who said to an Apache girl, "You belong with me always," and meant it with every fiber of his being. And of a girl who said yes, who chose to believe in love one more time, who took the hand offered to her and built a life beyond her wildest dreams. That was their story. That was their legacy. And it endured, generation after generation, a reminder that love is stronger than rejection, that family is what you make it, and that sometimes the most important thing you can do is stop and help someone who has fallen. Because you never know when that simple act of kindness might change not just one life, but create ripples that last for centuries. Aiyana and Lucas Quinn, a love story for the ages. A testament to the power of choosing love over fear, of seeing worth in someone the world has deemed worthless, of building something beautiful in the wilderness. They belonged together always, and their love proved it every single day until death and beyond. In the hearts of their descendants, in the land they worked together, in the stories told around dinner tables and campfires, they lived on, forever together, forever home, forever proof that love, real love, conquers all.